Hello, my friends. Welcome back to English Unleashed. I'm Evan. Today, I want to start with a simple question. Have you ever learned an English word and then forgotten it a few hours later? Maybe you wrote it in your notebook. Maybe you highlighted it in a book. Maybe you repeated it 3 or 4 times. And maybe, for a moment, you felt confident. You thought, great, I know this word now. But the next day, something strange happened. The word disappeared. You recognized it when you saw it, but you could not remember it when you needed it. You wanted to use it, but your mind went blank. If this has happened to you, I want you to know something important. The problem is probably not your intelligence. The problem is probably not your age, and the problem is probably not your memory. In fact, your brain may be working exactly the way it was designed to work. Today, we are going to explore a fascinating question. Why does the brain forget English words? And more importantly, how can we help the brain remember them? By the end of this episode, you will understand memory in a completely different way. You will stop blaming yourself, you will stop feeling frustrated, and you will start learning English in a smarter way. So take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin. Many people think the brain works like a computer. They imagine information going in and staying there forever. But the brain is not a storage box. The brain is a survival machine. The word survival means staying alive and staying safe. For thousands of years, the brain had one main job: protect the human being, find food, avoid danger, stay alive. Because of this, the brain learned something important. Not all information deserves space. Imagine that every single thing you experienced stayed in your memory forever. Every face, every sound, every number, every conversation, every advertisement, every license plate, every song, every smell. Your mind would become overloaded. The word overloaded means carrying too much. It would be impossible to focus, impossible to think clearly, impossible to make decisions. So the brain created a solution. It became selective. Selective means choosing carefully. The brain constantly asks one question: is this information important? If the answer is no, the information slowly disappears. This is why forgetting is normal. In fact, forgetting is one of the brain's most useful abilities. I know that sounds strange, but think about it. If you remembered every useless detail from every day of your life, your mind would become chaotic. The word chaotic means disorganized and confusing. The brain forgets because forgetting creates space. Space for new ideas. Space for important memories, space for learning. The problem for English learners is simple. Many English words never convince the brain that they are important. The brain sees them once, maybe twice, then it quietly removes them. Not because the brain is broken, but because the brain thinks this information probably doesn't matter. And that brings us to our next big idea. How does the brain decide what matters? Imagine that your brain has a security guard. This security guard stands at the door of your memory. Every day, thousands of pieces of information arrive: words, images, sounds, conversations, news, videos, social media posts. Everything arrives at the door. And the security guard asks, should I keep this? Most information gets rejected. Only a small amount enters long-term memory.
The term long-term memory means information that stays for weeks, months, or even years. Now here's something interesting. The brain does not care how much effort you spent learning something. It cares how useful it seems. Let's imagine two situations. In the first situation, you learn the English word generous. You read it once, you underline it, then you close the book. That's it. In the second situation, something different happens. You learn the word generous, then you hear it in a podcast, then you read it in a story, then a friend uses it, then you try using it yourself. Now the brain starts noticing something. This word keeps appearing. This word keeps returning. Maybe it matters. Maybe it is useful. Maybe it deserves space. Slowly, the security guard opens the door and the word enters long-term memory. This is why repetition is so powerful. Not because repetition magically creates memory, but because repetition sends a message. The message says, "This is important." The brain listens, and the memory becomes stronger. Let me ask you another question. Have you ever tried to learn 50 English words in one day? Many learners do this. They find a long list of vocabulary. They study for hours, they memorize everything, and at the end of the day, they feel successful. But a week later, most of the words are gone. Why? Because memory does not work well under pressure. Think of memory like planting seeds. If you plant 50 seeds today and never water them again, what happens? Most will die. The same thing happens with vocabulary. Learning a word once is planting the seed. Remembering it requires watering. Watering means revisiting, repeating, using, seeing, hearing, speaking, again and again. The brain prefers repeated exposure. Exposure means coming into contact with something. Every exposure strengthens memory, and every repetition tells the brain, "This matters. This is useful. Keep this information." Slowly, the memory becomes stronger, and slowly, English words stop feeling temporary and start becoming part of your real vocabulary.
Now, let's talk about something that surprises many English learners. Sometimes you do not forget a word because you failed to learn it. You forget a word because you never truly connected with it. Connection is one of the most important parts of memory. The word connection means a link between two things. Your brain loves connections. In fact, the brain is constantly searching for patterns. Imagine that I give you 3 random words: apple, river, chair. You can memorize them, but after a few days, you will probably forget them. Now imagine a short story. A boy sat on a chair near a river while eating an apple. Suddenly, the 3 words become easier to remember. Why? Because stories create relationships. Relationships create meaning, and meaning creates memory. This is one reason children learn languages naturally. Children do not usually memorize long vocabulary lists. Instead, they hear words inside stories, inside situations, inside conversations. The brain remembers experiences better than isolated information. The word isolated means separated from everything else. Many learners make a simple mistake. They try to learn words by themselves, just a word and a translation. Word, meaning. Word, meaning, again and again. Sometimes this works, but often it creates weak memories. Instead, try learning words inside sentences, inside stories, inside situations. For example, imagine you are learning the word exhausted. You could memorize it like this:
Exhausted means very tired. Or you could learn it like this. After working for 12 hours, I felt completely exhausted. The second method is much stronger. Why? Because now the word lives inside a situation. The brain can see it. The brain can feel it. The brain understands it. And understanding always improves memory. Now let's talk about another powerful memory tool: emotion. Emotion is one of the strongest forces inside the human brain. Think about a moment you will never forget. Maybe your first day at school. Maybe your first job. Maybe a special celebration. Maybe a difficult moment in your life. Why do you remember it so clearly? Because emotion tells the brain this matters. When emotions become stronger, attention becomes stronger, and attention is the doorway to memory. The word attention means focused mental energy. If your attention is weak, memory becomes weak. If attention becomes strong, memory becomes strong. This is why boring information disappears quickly, and emotional information stays longer. Now think about your English learning journey. Which words do you remember best? Often they are words connected to your life, your hobbies, your dreams, your problems, your experiences. Words connected to emotion become easier to remember. For example, imagine you love football. If you learn English through football articles, football videos, and football podcasts, your brain becomes more interested. Interest creates attention. Attention creates memory. This is why you should not only study English. You should study things you enjoy through English. If you love business, learn business through English. If you love travel, learn travel through English. If you love psychology, learn psychology through English. Now English becomes connected to curiosity. Curiosity means a strong desire to know something, and curiosity is one of the brain's favorite emotions. Let's talk about another common problem. Many learners believe that reading something multiple times is enough. They read a page, then read it again, then read it again and again. It feels productive, but often it creates an illusion. The word illusion means something that looks true but is not true. You recognize the information, but recognition is not the same as remembering. This brings us to one of the most powerful learning techniques in the world: active recall. The word recall means bringing information back into your mind. Active recall means forcing yourself to remember. Let's imagine you learn 5 new English words. Most learners immediately look at the words again and again and again. But a stronger learner does something different. They close the book. Then they ask, "Can I remember the word? Can I explain it? Can I use it?" This small action forces the brain to work, and when the brain works, memory becomes stronger. Think about going to the gym. Muscles grow when they work. Memory works in a similar way. The effort of remembering strengthens learning. This is why testing yourself is often more effective than rereading. Not because testing is magical, but because remembering creates stronger memory pathways. A pathway is a route or connection. Every time you successfully remember something, that pathway becomes stronger. And every time the pathway becomes stronger, finding the information becomes easier. Now let's imagine 2 students. Student A reads the same vocabulary list 10 times. Student B reads the list 3 times and then tests himself 7 times. Which student learns more? Usually student B, because memory grows through retrieval. Retrieval means pulling information out of memory. The brain becomes better at remembering when it practices remembering. Now, let's connect this idea to English speaking. Many learners understand far more than they can speak. Does this sound familiar? You listen to a podcast, you understand almost everything. You watch a video, you understand most of it. But when it's time to speak, nothing comes out. Your brain suddenly feels empty. Why does this happen? Because understanding and producing language are different skills. Listening is recognition. Speaking is retrieval. When you speak, you must find the word without help. You must pull it from memory. This is why speaking practice is so important. Every speaking session trains retrieval. Every sentence strengthens memory. Every attempt builds confidence. Even mistakes help. In fact, mistakes are often signs of learning. Many people fear mistakes. They think mistakes mean failure. But mistakes provide feedback. Feedback means information about your performance. Without feedback, improvement becomes difficult. Think about a child learning to walk. The child falls many times, but nobody says the child failed. Falling is part of learning. The same is true for language. Mistakes are not evidence that you cannot learn English. Mistakes are evidence that you are learning English. The learners who improve fastest are not always the smartest learners. Often, they are simply the learners who are willing to make more mistakes. They speak, they try, they fail, they learn, then they try again. And every attempt makes memory stronger.
Now, let's explore another powerful idea. If memory is built through repetition, an important question appears. How often should we repeat something? Many learners repeat a word 5 times today. Then they never see it again. A week later, the word disappears. The problem is not repetition. The problem is timing. The brain remembers information better when repetition is spread over time. This technique is called spaced repetition. The word spaced means separated by periods of time. Instead of reviewing a word 10 times today, you review it once today, then tomorrow, then 3 days later, then 1 week later, then 2 weeks later. Every successful review tells the brain this information is still important, and every review strengthens the memory. Think about building a path through a forest. The first time you walk through the forest, the path is difficult to see. The second time becomes easier. The third time becomes easier. Eventually, a clear path appears. Memory works in a similar way. Every review strengthens the path. Every review makes future recall easier. This is why consistency is more powerful than intensity. The word consistency means doing something regularly. Intensity means doing a lot at one time. Many learners choose intensity. They study English for 4 hours on Sunday. Then they do nothing for the next 6 days. This feels productive, but often it is not effective. The brain prefers regular contact. 10 minutes every day is often better than 2 hours once a week because memory grows through repeated exposure. Now, let's imagine 2 learners again. Both study the same vocabulary. Both spend the same amount of time. One learner sleeps 6 hours. The other sleeps 8 hours consistently. After several weeks, the second learner often remembers more. Not because they studied harder, but because their brain had more opportunity to strengthen memory. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do for learning is simply getting enough sleep. Now, let's talk about attention. Attention is one of the most valuable resources in the modern world. Every day, people compete for your attention.
social media, advertisements, notifications, videos, messages, everything wants your focus. But memory depends on attention. If attention is weak, memory becomes weak. Imagine reading a page while checking your phone every 30 seconds. You may finish the page, but very little enters memory because attention was constantly interrupted. The word interrupted means stopped or broken. This is why deep listening is powerful. When you listen carefully to a podcast without distractions, memory improves. Not because the content changes, but because attention changes. The quality of attention often determines the quality of learning. This means one focused 10-minute session can be more valuable than 30 minutes distracted. Now, let's connect everything we have learned so far. Why do people forget English words? Not because they are bad learners, not because they are too old, not because they lack talent. Most forgetting happens because the brain never received enough evidence that the information mattered. The solution is not studying harder. The solution is studying smarter. Use repetition, use stories, use emotion, use active recall, use speaking practice, use spaced repetition. Protect your attention, get enough sleep, and most importantly, stay consistent. Because every small learning session sends a message to your brain, a message that says, "This matters. Keep this. I will need this again." And when the brain receives that message often enough, memory begins to change, vocabulary begins to grow, confidence begins to grow, and English slowly becomes a natural part of your life.
Now, before we finish today's episode, I want to share a simple system. Not a complicated system. Not a system that requires expensive courses. Not a system that requires 3 hours every day. A simple system that almost anyone can follow. Let's imagine that you want to remember more English words. Instead of trying to learn 50 words today, choose 5. Just 5. Read them, listen to them, use them in sentences. Then tomorrow, review them again. Not for 30 minutes, not for 1 hour, just a few minutes. Then use them again, and again, and again. This approach may feel slow, but remember something important. Slow learning is not the same as ineffective. In fact, slow learning is often stronger learning, because slow learning gives the brain time to build connections. Think about building a house. Would you trust a house built in 1 day? Probably not. Strong foundations take time. The word foundation means the base that supports everything else. Vocabulary works the same way. Strong vocabulary grows slowly, word by word, sentence by sentence, conversation by conversation. Now I want you to imagine your future self. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. You are listening to English comfortably. You are reading articles without translating every sentence. You are speaking with more confidence. You are remembering more words. How did that future version of you get there? Not through one magical lesson, not through one perfect method, not through one lucky day. They got there through consistency. 1 podcast at a time, 1 page at a time, 1 conversation at a time, 1 small effort repeated again and again. This is how real progress happens. Many learners spend too much time looking for the perfect method, the perfect app, the perfect course, the perfect teacher. But often, the real secret is much simpler. The best method is the method you continue using. The best system
is the system you can follow regularly, because a good system used consistently will always beat a perfect system used rarely. Now let's talk about confidence. Confidence is interesting. Many people think confidence comes first. They think, when I become confident, I will start speaking. But confidence usually works in the opposite direction. Action comes first. Confidence comes later. You speak, you make mistakes, you survive, you learn. Then confidence grows. Imagine a person learning to ride a bicycle. They do not become confident before riding. They become confident because they ride. The same thing happens with English. Confidence is not a requirement. Confidence is a result of repeated action, a result of repeated practice, a result of repeated success and failure. So if you are waiting to feel confident before speaking English, you may be waiting forever. Instead, start speaking now. Start small, one sentence, then another, then another. Progress creates confidence, not the other way around. And remember something important. You do not need to know every word. Native speakers do not know every word. Teachers do not know every word. Even writers do not know every word. Language is not about perfection. Language is about communication. The word communication means sharing ideas with other people. If people understand you, communication is happening. Even if your grammar is not perfect, even if your pronunciation is not perfect, even if you make mistakes, communication matters more than perfection. This idea can remove a lot of pressure. Pressure often hurts memory. Pressure often hurts performance. When people become nervous, attention becomes weaker. And when attention becomes weaker, memory becomes weaker. So try to relax. Give yourself permission to learn gradually. Learning a language is not a race, it is a journey. And every learner travels at a different speed. Some people move faster, some people move slower. But the direction matters more than the speed. As long as you continue moving forward, you are succeeding. Now let's return to the question we asked at the beginning of this episode. Why does your brain forget English words? The answer is surprisingly simple. Your brain forgets because forgetting is normal. Forgetting is not a flaw. Forgetting is part of the learning process. Your brain is constantly deciding what deserves space, and your job as a learner is to help the brain make that decision. Use repetition, use stories, use emotion, use active recall, use speaking. Protect your attention. Get enough sleep, stay consistent. Do these things long enough, and your memory will change. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but gradually, steadily, quietly. The words that once felt difficult will become familiar. The sentences that once felt impossible will become natural. The English that once felt distant will become part of your everyday life. And one day you will realize something. You are no longer trying to remember English. You are simply using English. That is the moment every learner dreams about. And that moment is much closer than you think. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope this episode helped you understand your brain a little better. And I hope it reminded you that progress is happening even when you can't see it. Keep listening, keep learning, keep growing. I'm Evan, and this is English Unleashed. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.